Okay, that counts. You did good. You win that one.
Say bitches.
Was that for me or her? Say bitches, Robin. There we go. When the night started out in the back of a limo with a dozen friends, 2 coolers of beer, and a seemingly endless supply of freshly rolled joints, I didn't think that it would end with me face down in the parking lot of a strip club halfway between here and Galveston. Come to think of it, when the night started like that, I should have realized that it would only end up that way. How else could it not? It all started when I met several other friends at my buddy Butter's shop for what we thought was a small impromptu party he was throwing. Once everyone arrived, he walked us through the property out behind his shop to where a stretch limo was waiting for us a block over. After a mutual exclamation of disbelief and a round of enthusiastic high-fives, we all piled in, sending up queries as to where we were going. "Just drink up and don't worry about it," said Butter, passing beers out to all of us. We could have very well been being taken off to some crazy eyes wide shut party where we'd be filleted like fish and hung from the ceiling of a cabin-dwelling cannibal. But that didn't seem too likely. Either way, I really didn't care as long as the beers didn't stop coming. I was in overstimulation party mode. After we'd been driving for a bit, we realized we were almost in Galveston, and we all cheered and clinked our beers together for no reason other than we had a destination. We arrived and began going to bars on the Strand, hopping out for a drink or two before dashing back to our coach of luxury to keep the impromptu party going. After an imperceptible amount of time had passed, we were told to load back up to head to our next destination. The fact that we even had another destination brought our drunken elation to a record high as we piled into the limo like a troop of inebriated clowns, jumping into the back of a Volkswagen at the same time. On this particular stretch of the journey, we switched gears, deciding to indulge in some herbal remedies. Within no time, the limo was filled with thick, sweet, piney smoke like we were backstage at a Jamaican rock concert. Everything seemed great, and I was beginning to wonder how this could get any better until the limo slowed and we turned into our next secret location. Smoke billowed out in such quantity when we opened the doors that I'm certain any onlookers would have thought the limo was on fire. I rubbed the smoke from my bleary red eyes with my palms before looking up to the towering neon sign in front of me screaming, "Baby dolls!" in pink and blue fluorescent across the night sky. I guess there was one thing that could make this better, and it was going to a strip club. As you can imagine, there was much rejoicing. Now, I'm sure we all have friends that when asked will say, "I'm really not into strip clubs." Basically, that's about the same as saying, "I'm really not into breathing." There's something about the dirty taboo-ness of a strip club that is alluring to almost everyone, whether they choose to admit it or not. Also, there are boobs. Lots and lots of boobs. Anyway, we filed in through the metal detector to learn that the cover had been paid for all of us already, which was just one more reason for celebration. We happily purchased our $9 beers and took seats around the main stage. This particular club had 3 stages that worked thusly. A girl would dance to a song on the main stage, then move to the second stage for the next song while the girl took her place. After that song was over, the girl on the second stage would move to the third, and the other girl would move to the second, and so on, to provide a constant rotation of dancers for your enjoyment. Once I was settled in and ready to go, I was a little disappointed by the malaise and all-out apathetic approach that the current dancer on the main stage was taking. But knowing she was only going to be there for one song left me hopeful for what was to come. The song ended, and I anxiously awaited her replacement as she half-assedly scooped up the few pity dollars that had been left for her. When the music started back up, the next girl took the stage, and I was crestfallen to see more of the same disinterested approach from someone who clearly did not take pride in their craft. At one point, she even checked her phone while rubbing her ass up and down against the pole. I mean, don't get me wrong, being a stripper might not be your dream job or anything like that, but if you have to do it, you might as well try your best, right? The next few dancers exhibited more of the same lackadaisical behavior, and although I once thought this to be impossible, I was actually bored at a strip club. That is, until finally a pale-skinned, spunky redhead took the stage and exploded her sexy charm across our gawking faces. She really didn't do anything special besides clearly give a shit about her performance, but it was all I needed, and I tripped over myself trying to get up to give her my money. "Thanks, sweetie," she cooed, as I slipped a $5 into her panties. "You're cute." I'm sure this is a standard line she used on most, if not all, patrons, but in my current chemically altered state of mind, I felt special. I floated back over to my seat and watched as she made her way to the next stage. The dancer that replaced her was unimpressive at best, but it didn't matter because now my attention was on the redhead. It's hard to explain exactly what goes on in the minds of most men in a strip club, but in my current condition, I could see just how easy it could be for someone to get sucked in. For me, it happened by my impaired brain deciding to convince me that this was no ordinary stripper. She was different. She was special. Over the course of the next song, I invented an entire backstory for my red-headed stripper, which included her being a sensitive and intelligent, soft-hearted poet, working as a dancer until her book came out and she was named the new poet laureate. I know this sounds crazy, but we had smoked some really good weed, and in my head, all this sounded not only plausible, but extremely possible. A tap on my shoulder pulled me away from my daydream, letting me know it was time to go. We all filed out, but as we passed the third stage where my redhead was, I stopped. I needed to know the mystery of this girl. I had to know what her true passion was driving her through this dark and treacherous life. She noticed me standing there and made her way over on her hands and knees. "Hi again, sweetie," she said, shaking various bits of her anatomy at me. "Hi," I said. "We're leaving." "That's too bad, cutie." "I just wanted to ask you something before I go, though." "What's that?" "What else do you do?" My redhead stopped, pulled back, and looked at me puzzled. What do you mean, sugar?" She looked around nervously, making eye contact with someone off to the side, but I took no notice. "I mean just that," I said confidently, waiting to hear about her poetry. "What else do you do?" "I do this," she said, shaking her chest at me, "and I do this." She turned around and shook her ass at me. "And that's all I do. Maybe it's about time you were going, darling." She tugged her G-string over, clearly waiting for me to put more money in it. I wanted to say more, but instead opted to insert my final few dollars and walk away. I got about 2 steps from the stage before I realized what I had just done. In my deluded, alcohol and drug-fueled mind, I had concocted a hooker with the heart of gold story for this girl that was innocent and possibly charming. But in actuality, I saw how my subtle aloofness would come off maybe as a proposition. This girl thought when I asked what else she did, I meant sex and how much. Realizing how this must have been perceived, I turned to go back and apologize, but ran face first into the 7-foot brick shithouse of a bouncer. "Oh, I'm sorry," I said. "Damn right you are," he spat at me from his enormous height advantage. "What do you think you're trying to ask my girl back there, huh? What kind of place do you think this is?" "What? No, I mean, I know how it came off. I didn't mean it like that. I just wanted to talk to her about poetry." "Sure you did," he snarled. "That's why I'm going to personally escort you to your own private poetry slam." With that, he picked me up by my shirt collar and the back of my jeans like I was a rag doll. My friends were all outside already, so there was no one to come to my aid, not that it would have mattered anyway. When we got to the door, the bouncer rammed my face hard into the doorframe on purpose. "Whoops," he said. "Sorry about that, Mr. Shakespeare. Hope you can still remember all your poems." With that, he kicked the door open, swung me back to gain momentum, and pitched me right out into the parking lot like something you would see in a movie. I hit the scratchy blacktop, stomach first, performing the perfect asphalt belly flop. I bounced once before skidding a few feet and coming to a stop. The wind was knocked out of me, and I could already feel what I imagined would be a pretty impressive shiner swelling up on my face as my head throbbed from the blow. The few of my friends who weren't in the limo yet and saw me fly from the club came to my aid. "Jesus Christ," said one of them, helping to pick me up. "What happened? What'd you do to that guy?" I couldn't talk yet, but gestured at the limo for them to get me inside so we could leave. Once I was safely in, and we were on the road again, the limo was eerily quiet as the group waited for the explanation of my flying lesson while I caught my breath. "Well," said Butter, "what the hell happened back there?" "It was nothing," I stammered as the pulsating pain bounced around in my head. It was a big misunderstanding. It's not even worth explaining, really." "Say, do we have any more beer?" They prodded at me for a few more minutes, but after some joints were lit and a couple beers were passed around, the subject finally changed and I was out of the hot seat. When I look back at that night with a much clearer head, I can see how exactly my question was perceived and exactly how stupid it was for me to even come up with the idea that this girl had some secret life involving literature and poetry. But still, some days, I like to think in the back room of a strip club halfway between here and Galveston, there's a red-headed stripper sprinkling glitter on her tits and quoting Keats and shaking her moneymaker. The end. Thank you.